Hey, what's up, man? Oh, you looking for a Squier? Yeah, no problem. What do you look for? Classic vibe, 50s, 60s, 70s, Bullet, or Affinity, or a Mini, Paranormal, Hello? Guess I lost him. Hey, James G here with Tarpley Music in Fort Worth, Texas. You can always find us online at tarpleymusic.com, and please subscribe to the channel below if you haven't done so already. So you're interested in getting into Fender series of guitars, and you're more on an economical budget where you're looking at the Squier series, which is great because it's a great product for that money. So you get on Google and you hit up Squier guitar, and a million different models come up. So there are a lot of different Squiers out there now, and it can be very intimidating. And so what I'm basically going to do is kind of explain the different categories and see it's really not as massive as it might seem. So we're going to start real simple. So the guitar that I have here is the Bullet series. This is basically where Fender Squier starts. Okay. Now, as far as specs, it's a very middle of the road, easy to learn on playing guitar. It's a 9.5 fingerboard radius, which is the curvature of the radius. It's a 25.5 scale length, when the scale length is referring from bridge to the nut. So that's a very standard length there. It's a Laurel fingerboard, which is very, very comfortable. These have narrow, tall frets, which basically mean for a beginner, it's easier to fret down and get to that fingerboard to get sound out of it. This is a 6 saddle bridge, which means each string has its own saddle, so it can be adjusted very easily. So fully adjustable to make sure that it plays right and everything's in tune. And this is a C-shaped neck, which literally, if you imagine the letter C, that's what it looks like if you were to look down the guitar that way. And it's very standard playable Strat. Now, with the Bullet series, there's only a few options. You have the Stratocaster. There's a Fat Strat, which is a single coil with a double, which looks like this guy here, a humbucking pickup, and then there's a Telecaster, and then there's a Mustang, which is just a different shape, which has 2 humbuckers in it, and that's it. So there's your 4 series. The Minis, which come in either a Jaguar or a Strat, those are the only 2 models it comes in. It's literally a Bullet Strat, but it's a 22.75 scale length. And if you're not good at math, that's smaller, right? So it's a Mini. But it's great for young kids to play. Maybe even there's some, I know, like more short-statured ladies who really like learning on Minis because it's very comfortable to play. But it's just a Bullet with parts and everything, but a smaller scale length. So if you're really going up from a Bullet series, you're going to the Affinity series. Now, Affinity series is their first full line of Squier guitars as far as body styles, and it's the first series that has a bass guitar in it. So with the with the Affinity, you can get a Strat, Fat Strat, Tele, Mustang Jazzmaster, a Tele Deluxe, and then of course the basses. And they actually have a Starcaster now, which is an old vintage body style guitar that's come back. So you have a full line of style differences. Now, are there any differences other than style options? Yes. So on the Bullet, you have a very simple single coil ceramic style pickup, which is an inexpensive way to do a pickup here. These are ceramic style pickups better, but they are a better version of that. So it's going to be a little bit more output. It's a little bit less harsh and brassy as these because they're inexpensive pickups. Work great, but that's, what they are. So the next thing they've also done is that your bridge is now a 2-point synchronized tremolo. So it's a much better bridge here. You have 6 block style saddles. Very easy to make sure you get your playing action and things like that. Full die cast tuners on here. And that is your biggest difference other than the frets. So medium tall, they have gone to medium jumbo now. So it's a little bigger fret. You can get more sustain and better bends and things out of that, but it's just a touch harder to get sound out of in the Affinity series. So like I said, the Affinity series is really where all your options start. A lot of times you'll see a Fender guitar pack. It's got a guitar, cable picks and an amp and everything in one box. It's almost always an Affinity series. So it's really, the Bullet series is really where they start these. To me, the Squier series options really start at Affinity, because then you can get all those options, including bass guitars. So that is that. So Bullet, where it starts in that. Mini, just a smaller version of that. The Affinity is the next step up for just a better playing as far as the sound of everything. You can get a little bit more out of it now that you've learned a little bit more. Better bridge, better tuners. So that's the main thing from there. So from there, the Squier series now has the Classic Vibe series. Now, the Classic Vibe series is literally that. It's built off a lot of the classic style of guitars, but at an affordable rate. So you've got from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And so you're only going to find styles, those guitars that were available in that decade. So the 50s are a Strat and a Tele, because that's what there were in the 50s. When you get to the 60s, it'll add the Mustang and Jazzmaster, some of those titles, and I believe you get your first 5-string J-Bass at that price. But what it's doing is it's taking all those specs and the feel and how everything was done in that particular era and then duplicating it here. Now, we've gone from ceramic pickups to Alnico magnet pickups, which is a big jump in warmth and sound and volume and output. So now you're really getting into some real pickups. So this really could go between beginner and intermediate pretty easily. Some of these guitars are great intermediate guitars and could play a gig on, right? These are done really, really well. So when you get to the 70s, you're adding your Tele Deluxe, and then you're adding some of those other guitars that came out in the 70s, the Fat Strat, a P-Bass again, and then you still have a J-Bass, and there's a 5-string. Also it's the only 5-string in the Classic Vibe series is in the 70s, I believe. So there's a lot of options now, and you're thinking just in that particular era. So those colors and those shapes. All the Classic Vibe series have gone back to narrow tall, because that's really what started off everything. The biggest, one of the biggest things to me is that they actually start going with bone nuts at that point. Up until that, all these guitars are just a synthetic plastic nut. A bone nut holds a lot more sustain. It's when it's shaped, it's done. It doesn't really break like plastic does, and a lot of that kind of stuff. So, excuse me. So if you're thinking, really want to get a really cool guitar that's based off a vintage style guitar from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, but I'm on a budget, Classic Vibe series. That's where you want to go. So let's recap. So I've got Bullet is where a few basic models start. The Minis, a couple versions of that smaller. The Affinity is where all your options start. And then your Classic Vibe series from 50s and 60s and 70s are getting better playing guitars based off those eras. And that, for the most part, is all your Squier stuff. Now, there are a few other Squier series things that are out there that are almost really kind of on their own. They have a contemporary series now, which literally is modernizing a lot of these types of guitars. You can almost think of it as the catty corner of the Classic Vibe series. Classic Vibe, hey, these are based off 50s, 60s, and 70s. The contemporary, hey, these are modernized versions of those. So you'll see like hot rail style humbucker pickups. They make from a 9.5 to a flatter radius. A lot of your faster players like a flatter radius because there's more surface area for solo notes. And then they go to jumbo frets. So you can get a lot of sound and tone out of them and sustain out of it, but you got to be able to push and really play on those things. And with the exception of, I think, a couple of the models, almost all of them have black headstock. So they have very contemporary colors, very modernized, and so that's the contemporary series. The Paranormal series is basically kind of your one-offs, your weirder stuff. Like they have a baritone guitar, which is essentially it's a complete fourth down from a regular guitar. It's E to E. Baritones are generally B to B. So it's between a bass guitar and a modern electric guitar, or your standard electric guitar. A baritone's right in there. Also, a lot of different offset body styles that Fender probably tried for a year, or they didn't really do a bunch of reproduction of it, like the Duo Sonic, and there's the where is another one? I've got it down here. Cyclone, the Tornado, a lot of these weird kind of body styles that I don't know a ton about because they weren't really on there, but they're all really cool looking shapes. And so that is the Paranormal series. So once again, we have the Bullet series starts everything, the mini or smaller versions of that. Affinity is my first option with my first series with all the options. My Classic Vibe series 50s, 60s, and 70s. The opposite of that, the Contemporary series, which has modernized those. And the Paranormals are the guitars that really just don't fit in any of those categories. And that is it. So if you're a beginner, you're really going in looking at Bullet and Affinity series guitars. Like I said, usually in the packs, they're very affordable, can still play well, and you get some style options. If you've been playing for a while, or you really like a certain era or type of guitar from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you're looking at classic vibe. If you love the styles but you're a very modern player, then you want to look at contemporary. If you're looking for something really off that a lot of people don't have, paranormal. And there also is coming out with a 40th anniversary series that they're doing. It's just the Strat, the Tele, and the Jazzmaster, and each one has a series, a gold and a vintage version of those. So excited about when those comes out. Hopefully we'll be able to do a video on that series by itself. It's more just an anniversary type series from there, but at the Squier factories. So that, in a nutshell, is the Squier series. So if you can think of in these 3 or 4 category styles, you really can just stay in that category style and then just deal with the options in that category. So it's really kind of like, man, there's so many Squiers out there. And I was literally in the store, and we were kind of talking about, man, there's just so many out there now, so it's kind of confusing. So I said, you know what? I want to do a video that explains, hey, if you're looking at Squier, these are the steps, and this is how it works. And hopefully it helps. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you have any more questions, come up to Tarpley. We have guitars from all the series. And of course, we've got several stores, and we definitely can get any of them if we don't have them in the store for you pretty quick. But this way you can get a feel for, okay, I can feel, the difference between a Bullet and Affinity here. When you see the Classic Vibe series, I can see they look totally vintage and totally different. Come up, and if you got any more questions, we'd love to answer them for you. And hopefully you like this video. Hit like down below if you did. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really, really, really helps us out, helps us grow, helps us to get more information to you. And if you'd like to know as more videos drop, then just turn on notifications, and then we'll see you at the next one.